What's the most overlooked red flag when dating someone? Story 1. When I told her I didn't want to continue dating her, she turned up at my doorstep and refused to take no for an answer. Rather than seeing this for what it was, potentially psychopathic, I told myself she must be really into me. Answer: knew someone that happened to. She showed up to his house. He never gave her his address. After he rejected her and cried to his mom until she guilted him into a date. It took months to get her to leave him alone. His dad thought the whole thing was insane and tried to get his mom to not force him, then spent the rest of the time I told you, sewing when she started showing up at random family members' houses during get-togethers she hadn't been invited to, and acted like his mom was inevitably going to be her MIL. The end was anticlimactic though. She just got a BF and moved on. Story 2. If your friends and loved ones don't like them, they're seeing something you can't because you're high on dopamine or something. If more than one of the people close to you don't like them, you should listen. Story 3. Adult beverage consumption. Some people are fine with drinking 4 to 5 units per day, others are, for good reasons, not. But don't date someone knowing full well their adult beverage consumption and then expect that the second you turn serious, kids, marriage, that they will stop. Never works out well for anyone involved. Story 4. Okay, these are all good red flags people are mentioning, but they aren't very subtle or often overlooked. I think one that is often missed is when someone starts making reasonable-sounding excuses for why the relationship isn't moving forward. Work is tough, they don't like labels, you're rushing them too much, etc. It's clear you two are in different places, and the right thing to do is either give things a try your way or just break up. Playing the excuses game is just childish at best and emotionally abusive at worst. But so many people stick around to see if the person will change their mind. Story 5. The most overlooked red flag? Thinking it's all about the other person. Every relationship is a dynamic between two people. Spotting red flags in someone else is easy, but the real work is asking yourself why you're drawn to that, how you respond to it, and what part you play in the pattern. Yeah, sure, if they're freebasing meth in the bathroom mid-date, that's a universal red flag. But most red flags aren't neon. They're subtle and personal. And if you're just scrolling Reddit to confirm your gut feeling, maybe stop and ask, is the flag theirs or mine? Story 6. When you decline doing something, and they try to talk you into doing what they want, they're not outright demanding. They're going, but, or we can do this too. They present it as a compromise. It's not. It's you need to. It becomes, we are doing this, ultimatums. And then you have no voice, no ability to say no. You don't feel or think, you just automatically do what you're told without question. You have no self anymore. Story 7. This is pretty niche, but a lack of basic self-care survival instincts. It's a bad bet to build a life with someone who lacks either the awareness or care to do things like wear a seatbelt, brush their teeth, eat somewhat healthily, etc. Story 8. Trauma dumping opening up about certain things extremely early on. It can often look like bonding and being honest and vulnerable, which are usually green flags. But I've learned that people can open up about personal stuff like anxiety and OCD to use them as a weapon. First to test how much you're willing to bend to their will early on, and then to be used down the line to guilt trip, avoid accountability, and control far too many things, and even you, in the relationship, and make sure they're never inconvenience in the relationship. That's not to demonize mental illness at all, but it's definitely something overlooked and can be abused very subtly. Answer: is there a good way to make intentions clear on this? I struggled with this with my ex. I'd try to explain myself, end up sounding like I was making excuses, and it'd feel terrible. We worked on it and it got better. I'm just scared for when that time comes again to open up to someone new. I do have OCD, but I'd never want to force my issues onto anyone else. I know taking accountability, not saying things like I did this because I have OCD, etc. But I never want it to come off as trauma dumping or like fishing for someone's limit. Story 9. Inability to simply say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, when they've made a mistake. Hell, we all make mistakes. That's why pencils come with erasers after all. But at least own your mistakes and apologize. Story 10. They seek pity on the first or second date. Dated a girl who broke the light mood on our first dinner out by somberly telling me her sister had cancer. Years later, we met up again on dates, and she did the same thing. Almost like a test to see how sympathetic you are. Story 11. It's not super overlooked in most relationships, but I definitely missed it in mine, only ever wanting to do their hobbies. And when you try to do your hobbies with them, they judge you like crazy or refuse to even try it. Very obvious red flag, but I was extremely love blind. Story 12. Excessive gifting. Maybe trying to order for a person at all, rather than allowing for moods and curiosity to be explored. Definitely a red flag when it's immediate. Also sort of unhealthy most of the time in the long run, unless your partner's in the bathroom or something when the order's made. I did say most of the time because some partners are into that. Story 13. I've never done this, but a few friends were the kind to build their next nest, then break up. If we're part of a relationship that started with cheating by one of y'all or both, it's gonna end the same way. Story 14. Anyone that tests you. I dated someone that would tell me something such as not to pick anything up for him, and when I didn't pick anything up, he said that was a test and I failed. It was annoying at first, but looking back, that was just one hint of mind games he would end up playing. Story 15. Lack of curiosity. It's hard to see in the beginning. You might even find them charming or simple-minded, no need for frills or thrills. They're probably just sad, depressed, or insecure, and they're trying to spin it as a personality trait. Story 16. Controlling. I've lost a lot of friends over the years to controlling partners that decide who they can hang out with and when. Many times, I've not been on the approved list. I think it might have something to do with my knack for pointing out subtle controlling behavior. Story 17. They talk constantly about what kind of person they are. If someone truly possesses or has cultivated a character trait, they don't need to tell you about it, they just do it. The more someone goes on about how great a person they are, the less likely they are to be that great. Story 18. Rudeness. You want to call me a name or refer to me as stupid or look down on me or make fun of me? That's disrespectful and rude, and I won't tolerate 1 second of it. But I see this all the time, and people just wave it aside and move on in the relationship. It's a stepping stone toward abuse, and I don't know why anyone would put up with that. Speak up. Story 19. They think anyone will listen to whatever they say, thinking they can talk themselves into or out of any situation. Really just means they think every single other person is dumber than they are and easily manipulated. But people sometimes say this like it's a good thing. Story 20. I'm seeing a guy who has a TBI. He's deemed to have a personality change because of it. His mother and wife had restraining orders on him. He tells me, I don't know about everything, or that he won't tell me. He won't tell me what he's doing, where he is going. He tells me it's none of my business. Red flag, right? Story 21. When they badmouth the mother-father of their children. I don't care how toxic their ex-partner supposedly is. That's the other parent of your children. If you badmouth them in my company, odds are you do it in others' company too. Before long, the children have heard what you have said and will be turned against the other parent. It's not worth it. No matter how much your ex-partner may have hurt you, your children shouldn't be affected by your difficult divorce more than they already are. You're divorcing the other parent, not your children. Story 22. Love bombing in the early stages of the relationship. They are so sweet, kind, caring, attentive at the beginning of the relationship, yes, because your defenses were up. You would have called them out on their BS. Now you've a year deep into a relationship where you feel bonded to this person, that this person loves you and you're responsible for fixing, helping, excusing, giving grace to the things they do say that no one who loves you would. Story 23. One often overlooked red flag is when someone constantly makes you question how they feel about you. Love shouldn't feel like a guessing game. If you're always overanalyzing their words, doubting their intentions, or feeling unsure about where you stand, it's not clarity, it's confusion. And confusion is not love. Story 24. When they lack boundaries, at first you might just think they're so open, generous, honest, etc. But it might actually be they don't have the emotional skills that are necessary for knowing what shouldn't be disclosed. They bypass their needs, and people please because they're desperate to be loved and needed. They crave instant connection and try to speed run it instead of letting it build organically over time. Story 25. Have no friendships that have lasted longer than 6 months. Edit. Another specific one I remember was going on a few dates with this woman, and the next day she asked if I wanted to go run errands with her, just hang out casually. So, we ended up going to a grocery store where she bought a dozen or so apples along with whatever else, but she grabbed one cheap apple and the rest were more expensive ones. All same color of red, basically. She scanned the cheap one for the entire dozen and explained that's what she did because they never knew. I was like, yeah, that's a no. Story 26. I had someone that I never even kissed tell me, I thought we were going to be together forever. I thought we were going to kick your roommate out, and this is where we would raise our kids, and this would be our home. I never dated her, but that was some big red banner. I'm so glad that I never slept with her. Story 27. It's not super overlooked in most relationships, but I definitely missed it in mine, only ever wanting to do their hobbies. And when you try to do your hobbies with them, they judge you like crazy or refuse to even try it. Very obvious red flag, but I was extremely love blind. Story 28. They aren't curious. You start a new hobby, but they don't ask questions. You tell them a fun fact, and they say, okay. They don't care to know how and why things work. For me, that communicates general apathy and a passive way of living, as well as being quite boring. Story 29. They only care about the validation they receive from their social media and want to take pictures of all of the fun dates you plan, but only of flattering pictures of them. Later, my ex told me that she needs the likes to help her feel better, and she feeds off it. So I'd say that's a big red flag now, always with social media. Story 30. Anyone that asks what you bring to their table. I have a lot of money, close friends, and family. I am bringing absolutely nothing to your table. I am dating you for you, and I hope you're doing the same with me. Story 31. They ask you all kinds of questions, and at first you think they're being polite and interested. Then you find out they didn't take on board a darn thing you told them. That's just how they keep the conversation going. Story 32. Anything red flag adjacent. Basically, my philosophy always has been, If this is what they show you when they are on their best courting behavior, then how are they going to act once they stop being on their best behavior and start getting complacent and taking you for granted? Because there's a really good chance if they are, say, a little short-tempered with you that early on, they have a temper problem, etc. Story 33. I feel like a lot of people overlook verbal abuse in the beginning. They understandably have the rose-colored glasses on because you're supposed to be in the honeymoon phase. So they brush off verbal abuse, which only gets worse later and sometimes escalates to physical abuse. Ask me how I know. Story 34. Insecurity. It often signals someone who's clingy and needy and can turn into controlling and jealous. There's no room for baggage in a new relationship. How they treat their parents and siblings, provided these are good people. Being disrespectful and rude to parents, especially the parent of your gender, is a massive red flag. Story 35. Their relationship with their parents and/or family is a little too tight. On one hand, I get it. Having a close family that cares about you and supports you is a fantastic thing to have in your life. I wish I had that. But at some point, it crosses a line, at least for me. And that line could be any number of things. It impacts their independence and/or self-reliance. At some point, you shouldn't need to call your parents whenever anything goes a little sideways. At least not as your first call so they can tell you what to do. It makes me question if I will always be a secondary consideration. Do we always have to cater to their family? Will it impact long-term plans? Could they move away from their family if one or both of us wanted to? If they don't respect any boundaries, I would like to set up when it comes to their family. Like their family having a key to our place and them coming or going as they please even if we're not there. And I'll fully admit that maybe that's a bit of a red flag for me. That maybe I'm a little too independent. That maybe I'm a little too dismissive of family. Story 36. Adult beverage consumption, 1 drink, max 2, let's say. But if she starts looking tipsy, keep your distances, do not commit. Say thank you and goodbye when you've spent enough time and get back home. Not even gonna talk about smoking pots, anything. Just going tipsy at first date means run for your life. Of course, most moronic guys will only see an easy chance to fudge. But you know, that's precisely the problem then. You're just as lost and clueless as she is then. Story 37. Jealousy. Society has seemingly made it simply okay to be overly controlling in a relationship. Whether it be someone's partner having a friend of the opposite gender, or they go out with friends at a bar without you, etc. I see so many people finding it normal to agree with, "Oh, absolutely not. Guys can't be hanging out with my girl," and the same vice versa. I genuinely feel that most jealousy characteristics are unresolved past trauma, and it is unfair to put that on a partner in a relationship. If you don't like the idea of your boyfriend having female friends or being around females, maybe you aren't ready for a relationship, because what is the outcome you are really scared of? It's the idea of them sleeping together, am I right? Well, if you truly think your partner you have trusted has that weak of a constitution, why are you with them? Story 38. If they react negatively to your boundaries, and I mean in any way, shape, or form, if someone you just met sets a boundary that you don't understand, you don't have to understand it to respect it. Simple. Story 39. When their dating profile says, "I don't take shoot from anyone," that's an easy left swipe for me. If you remind me of someone I already dated, that's going to be a no thank you. Pretty much anything in the profile that indicates they don't trust the opposite gender. We are all skeptical and sometimes feel the same way, but those people think they are special for some reason, and I want nothing to do with it. Nothing but drama, and 99.9% of the time, they are the ones creating it. Story 40. They mentioned their ex was toxic? Okay, not weird. They seemed to go on and on about how much that ex was toxic and manipulative and how they've ruined their life. A big red flag. Hint, there's a 97% chance they're the toxic one and are just trying to validate, make themselves feel better about the breakup. For example, my ex kept talking about his toxic ex, how manipulative she had been, the way she had estranged him from his friends, the way she had controlled him, how bad she had treated him, etc. I saw him as the victim and was always there to hear him out. Big mistake. I know that now. The thing is, every bad thing he told me she apparently had done to him, he did it to me. It was the reason we broke up. It also opened my eyes. I now realize that little shoot wasn't the victim. As a matter of fact, M98 sure that he had been the sole reason that girl had become crazy. After all, why would someone who had apparently endured a toxic relationship get into another relationship and do the same shoot the abuser had done to them? It doesn't make sense to me at all. I just wish I'd known this before deciding to date him. Story 41. Everyone here is pointing out clear problems, but is like to add one that is overlooked because it doesn't seem negative at first. Intensely charming, aka love bombing. When interacting with complete narcissists or sociopaths, they often present as quite desirable partners because they give you so much attention. In fact, a big part of their MO is understanding how to give you exactly what you need in that moment to win you over. Once they have won you over, they can flip on a dime, showing you a cold, cruel side you've never seen before. Since you'll already have such a strong idea of who they are, which will be positive, it won't jump out at you right away that you are seeing their true personality and will think it has to do with some recent event or incident. It can take a long time to see who they truly are, and by then, they can do a lot of emotional damage. The lesson here is to keep your eyes open to subtle flags under that surface, because they can blind you with greatness. Story 42. Disrespecting small boundaries. When you tell them no, or you don't like something, they subtly push it. If they can't respect you in small things, it's a sign they probably won't respect you in major ones. Story 43. Texting and driving. I will die on this hill. It shows they don't value their own life, and more importantly, don't value the lives of others. I would never marry and start a family with someone that was fine with upping their chances of eliminate themselves and their children every time they got in a car. Story 44. They left someone for you. Their failed relationships are always their former partner's fault, you know? The guy or gal you don't know, so you can't fact-check what you're being told. Former partner is also depicted as stereotypically evil to siphon sympathy, manipulate the knight in shining armor mentality from the new partner. They ask for money loans immediately. Being secretive with their phone location friends aka make you feel like you're on an island. Story 45. Wanting to hang out with you and spend all their time with you right off the rip. At first, I thought it was just the honeymoon phase and we were super excited about getting to know each other. I didn't realize how needy and codependent he was. Story 46. For me, a lack of friends is a big one. Not everyone has a big social circle, and sometimes there's unique life circumstances. But if you're not able to maintain friendships, that's a huge indication of how I'm likely to be treated. Story 47. That was the breakup. 'Cause WTF is wrong with you? Story 48. Never disagreeing with anything you say. They think they need to please you that way, which may be nice for a peaceful start, but is not healthy in the long run. Plus, changing from being overly agreeable to disagreeable leads to resentment, oftentimes because the other partner feels lied to, which is true in a sense. Story 49. How people treat waitstaff or any minimum wage worker they come into contact with. If their life seems to always be chaotic, chances are they're the common denominator. A big one if your relationship is progressing towards engagement and marriage. Any issue that's "oh, we will talk about that later," is a really bad sign. Especially if it is whether or not they want kids, their finances, their views on people of other races or religions, or their views about LGBTQ people. Story 50. Lateness. It's so disrespectful to not only their partner, but the world. Occasional lateness happens, but repetitive lateness strains relationships and signals larger issues and lack of respect and/or discipline. Story 51. They have an inability to see that they might in fact be the problem. My ex, whom I loved dearly, until I couldn't love her any longer, was a really good partner in most ways. But she was never, ever in the wrong. Ever. Ever. And if she was ever challenged, well, look out, because a whole handbasket of hell was coming your way. It became exhausting. Story 52. I've literally just broken up with a woman who told me this right off the bat. She was one of the most toxic, insufferable people I've ever come across. Luckily, she didn't fudge up my life too badly. Never ignore this. It's the reddest of red flags. Story 53. Once somebody starts talking about how all their exes are crazy, I can't be helped. I ask, I wonder what the common denominator was in all those failed relationships, and they really don't like that. Story 54. He called me his girlfriend on the second date, and on the third date I asked him if he was in therapy because he trauma dumped on me, also a red flag. And he got really flustered and said, "This is more like a 10th date question." Story 55. Yeah. This becomes tiring for someone with ADHD who spills milk at times, next to Mrs. Never Admittedly Wrong. It's worse when your partner also explains how well they've done something on top of that, when I never feel the need to do that. I've got better at letting it go inside as it's not really something I can control, so I focus on the positive. Story 56. I just ended a brief relationship because of lies. He built himself up so very much, and I did sense some of it was untrue. But when I met him in person, 5'11", was 5'6", no car, and very old clothes. I could go on. The saying is very true. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Story 57. Knew someone that happened to. She showed up to his house. He never gave her his address, after he rejected her and cried to his mom until she guilted him into a date. It took months to get her to leave him alone. His dad thought the whole thing was insane and tried to get his mom to not force him, then spent the rest of the time "I told you so." And when she started showing up at random family members' houses during get-togethers she hadn't been invited to, and acted like his mom was inevitably going to be her MIL. The end was anticlimactic, though. She just got a BF and moved on.